Welcome to the NZ Travel Show, an interactive show where you can ask your NZ travel questions to the experts behind nzpocketguide.com, New Zealand's largest travel guide. The NZ Travel Show will start in exactly 2 minutes. Just the time for you to hit the like button, ring the notification bell, and subscribe if you have not done so yet. NZPocketGuide.com has over 3,000 articles covering all aspects of travelling in New Zealand, from a working holiday gap year to tips for a perfect family holiday. The site also features dozens of pre-made itineraries that you can use to plan your ideal trip in New Zealand. It's all available for free at nzpocketguide.com, so check it out. The NZ Travel Show is hosted by Robin, the Operations Manager of South Pacific Pocket Guide, the company behind nzpocketguide.com. The New Zealand Travel Show is also hosted by Laura, a journalist and editor-in-chief of South Pacific Pocket Guide and all its publications, including nzpocketguide.com. We're exactly 1 minute away from the NZ Travel Show. Get yourself comfortable and start asking your NZ travel questions in the chat. Robin and Laura will go over them when the show starts. In 30 seconds, our experts will be live from New Zealand to give you all the practical New Zealand travel tips you need, from the best transport options to the best accommodations and activities to choose for the perfect New Zealand holiday. Live from New Zealand, this is the NZ Travel Show with your travel experts, Robin and Laura.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the NZ Travel Show. It is the 29th of February. It's 8 a.m.
January.
Oh, so hard.
You
Anyway,
just want this year to be over already, don't you?
I'm just kind of like, I'm enjoying it so much. I'm speeding through it. Anyway, so it is the 29th of January, and this is the NZ Travel Show. We are live from New Zealand to answer all your questions about traveling in New Zealand. And Sherry's already here this morning.
Hey, so Sherry says, good morning, guys. I hope everyone is safe on the North Island. Are you safe, Robin?
I am safe on the North Island,
We had a pretty gnarly drive on the way back, driving in the Taupo area yesterday. That rain came down so hard all day.
Yep.
Water just like right across the road in some sections. But yeah, it's pretty hectic weather, as I'm sure you all heard.
Yes.
There's a lot of media coverage about it at the moment.
Anyway, we'll talk more about the media coverage of this whole storm thingy during the Patreon show. It's more of a Patreon things to chat about. Anthony Comstock says, Morena from Rodeo, California. Hope everyone is safe. Yes, we are safe for sure. What does Morena mean, Laura?
It means good morning in the indigenous language of New Zealand, which is Te Reo Maori.
Nice. Okay, so we got plenty for you today this week. We've got a theme of this week. We've got Almonds that has a fun videos for you guys. Yeah, so and we got plenty. So we're gonna say hi to Fabio, which is here on time today.
Oh, very good.
This is a rarity. So people cherish this for sure. Nathan is here in Taupo. Say, I hope you are staying safe with this wet weather. It is very damp. I have to say, everything feels damp. You're inside a house, it just feels damp. And we don't have a particularly damp house. We have a very dry house.
Yeah.
But everything feels
damp. And the
damp.
rain's like that heavy that it's just so loud on top of all the... most roofs in New Zealand are tin roofs.
Yeah.
So you just hear it on top of all the houses. Like any building or shelter you go into, even in your car as well, it's just like so loud.
But like, just to make it clear to everybody, we do have a lot of rain, right? Like, it's not the usual amount of rain. Like yesterday when we did our grocery shopping, literally Laura was outside with a bag, like one of those cool bags that you use to put like the things from the freezer, right?
Your cheese in and stuff.
Yeah. So and literally she had it outside as we were like kind of packing the car. and it literally was filling up with water because it was raining.
There was
much.
a puddle in the bottom of the bag, and when I was unloading it into the fridge yesterday, I had to get a towel out and dry all the stuff.
Yep.
It's quite funny.
Nathan says he feels like the summer weather has gone for now, but it may come back.
Maybe.
Or not, he says.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Adil is here, Chiara, Robin, Laura, and all the viewers. That's lovely. Okay, guys, so we do have a theme for us this week, so let's go over that. Yes, when you guys don't see us, I still dance. Every time. All right. So the theme this week is the New Zealand ferry, and we're going to be specifically talking about the Cook Strait ferry this week, and we're going to be talking about everything to do with crossing between the North Island and the South Island. This is something that pretty much every traveler is going to be doing when traveling around New Zealand, so that's kind of why we decided to cover that like that early on in this new live show that we're doing. So throughout this video, we're going to be talking about the ferry. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first up, what's going on? Sherry says, I hope it doesn't rain too much while I'm here. I'm trying to sleep in my camper van. It's going to be loud.
That is going to be loud.
Yeah. You can see some videos of us like with massive pockets under our eyes when we're traveling, especially in Milford Sound.
Oh, yeah.
As we could not sleep. It was really, really loud. And Fabio says, I got confirmation from my aunt and uncle. They will look after my dog during July. Boom! Fabio's coming in July, so that's really great.
Nice.
Okay, so let's get started with talking a little bit about the ferry between the North Island and the South Island, and let's get started with some frequently asked questions. So, Laura, what are the ferry routes in New Zealand?
So the main ferry routes that we're going to be talking about mainly today is the route between the North Island and the South Island, which specifically goes between the city of Wellington and the South Island town of Picton. But there are some other ferry routes. Just so you know, in New Zealand, you can take the ferries from Auckland to various islands like Waiheke Island, Rangitoto Island, etc. And there's also a ferry going between the South Island and Stewart Island.
All right, so that's good information, but there are more than one companies that will transfer you between the North Island and the South Island. So which one are the companies that will cover this route, Laura?
So the main two companies that go between Wellington and Picton are Interislander and Bluebridge, so keep those names in mind.
All right, so another question that we get really often is how long is the ferry from Wellington to the South Island, which is to Picton, and also back and forth, so from the South Island to the North Island. How long is the crossing?
So both ways are about the same amount of time, and that lasts between 3 hours and 3 hours and 30 minutes either way. It can be a little slower due to weather. It's weather dependent, so it could mean a slower sailing if the weather's not good. But yeah, bear in mind that it takes about 3 to 3.5 hours.
How many ferries travel per day?
Per day, there's about 5 sailings with each company, so there's usually plenty of departures to choose from, and they usually go between 2:30 a.m. nice and early to 8 p.m.
Okay, so now come the question that we get the most. So what time should people book their ferry between the North Island and the South Island of New Zealand?
So as I just mentioned, you can do pretty much night sailings or early morning sailings where it is really dark. That's when you would get the cheapest fares for sailing. However, you are going through some really stunning scenery, especially through the Marlborough Sounds. So we tend to suggest that you should go when it is daylight so that you can enjoy the scenic cruise. But if you want to do a little bit of a mixture of having like good scenery but also decent fares, then usually going around sunrise, so early morning sunrise time is a good time to go.
All right, guys. So Sherry says it's really good timing because she's going to book a ferry this week.
Excellent.
So that's pretty good. But yeah, if you do have any questions about traveling in New Zealand, feel free to pop it in the live chat. We're always here to answer all your questions. That's kind of what we do here. But yeah, in the meantime, we're going to keep going with giving you some information about the ferry because, you know, that's kind of like the thing we do here. We do like to share a lot of information with everybody. It's just what we dedicate ourselves to do. It's so awesome. All right. So, Kiwi Lauren is here.
Kiwi Lauren says, hello from minus 33 degrees Celsius in the town I can never pronounce, Saskatchewan?
It's
that
a
how you say
region.
it?
It's
A region.
Yeah.
Sorry. I hope your weather is okay there. My friends in Auckland have had an interesting couple of days. The photos of cars floating and the Auckland airport flooded are wild.
Well, is it like, the fire though? It rains that much, or is that Litty, all the architect in charge of building an entire town on a swamp, did not take the idea of drainage seriously?
Seems like you have some opinions about that,
which
Robin.
one is that? It's kind of really interesting how they frame the news from time to time. But again, we'll talk about these media things during the Patreon show because it's not really something goodly for the public. There you go. I did the one of the day.
Yeah.
All right, what's Fabio saying?
Fabio says, I will bypass the ferry and take an airplane. Yeah, so that is another option. You can fly between the North Island and the South Island. If you want to just go, if you're wanting to fly from the bottom of the North Island to the South Island, usually the best the best plane route and usually the cheapest plane route would be going from Wellington to Nelson. So that is another option. Of course, that isn't an option that you can take your car or camper van on.
No.
So that obviously is the drawback of that.
And Kiwi Lawrence says, sorry, I didn't mean to start it on that note. I just thought I'd check to make sure you guys were all good and relatively dry.
Relatively dry.
We did get wet. I mean, yesterday we actually were filming on the Facebook group. So on Patreon, we have like a secret Facebook group where everybody's there. And we started driving. And we decided, you know what, let's just go live on this Facebook group, just show them like how much it rains. And it was quite hectic. And I'm glad we didn't film on the way back because we were driving back like in the evening and there was quite a few landslip and trees down and everything. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we filmed the way up. It was an easier film a little bit, or an easier thing to film at least. All right, cool. Fabio says, really, isn't a car extra luggage for the airplane?
I know, yeah, they should have it as just a small fee.
Check-in luggage.
Check in your luggage.
Yeah.
You can check in your surfboard. Why can't you check in your car?
Yeah, I mean, Fabio, just try to call Air New Zealand, tell me how it goes.
Yeah, and especially for the size of the planes that they use for that crossing between Wellington and Nelson is usually, they're quite small planes, and it's quite a bumpy ride as well.
Kiwi Lauren says summer musical was just announced and they're doing the Rocky Horror Show. So she's doing the music directing and vocal coaching, and she's also playing saxophone in the band. And she said, I heard there's a Riff Raff statue in Hamilton. Is there?
I feel like I've heard of that, but I didn't know what Riff Raff was. But if that's something to do with the Rocky Horror Show, now I know. Yeah, I think you're right, Kiwi Lauren. I have heard about that, but I actually didn't know what that statue was referring to. So yeah, at least you can go and appreciate it and not be one of those people like me that's just scratching their head like, I don't know what this is.
So Fabio clarifies he's flying from Christchurch to Wellington, and Kiwi Lauren is 154 days ahead of a trip. So yeah, fun times. Okay, Laura, we're going to be talking about which one is the best company to take the ferry with when traveling around New Zealand. Is it Bluebridge or is it Interislander? Do you want to talk about it or do you want me to talk about it?
I think I'll hand it over to you, Robin.
All right. Okay, so there is two companies to travel between the North Island and the South Island in New Zealand. There's Bluebridge and Interislander. And obviously a question that we receive really often is which one is the best company for you to travel between the North Island and the South Island. And to be quite honest, both companies are extremely similar. There is really small minor difference between both of them. So I'm going to be starting by telling you what are the similarities between both companies so you kind of know what to expect when taking the ferry. And again, we will have some like little videos throughout this whole live shows and everything like that. So you kind of will get a really good understanding. But let's get started with what they both have. So they both have like food cafes with things you can purchase on board if you are feeling a little peckish during the cruise. They both have like a lot of space, like spacious lounges, plenty of space for you to walk around and get some viewpoints and everything like that. Like, I cannot stress enough that those boats are really large, so you won't really feel any time like claustrophobic or anything like that. And they both have upgrade options, should it be for like flexible passes to a bit more like luxurious lounges and everything like that. And they both seriously have a very smooth boarding process. A lot of people are a little bit stressed about that, and that's why we dedicate one section of this video right here. We will be talking about what does it look like to litty board with your camper van or with your car. We'll show you both. And yeah, so in short, the way you're going to be picking between both companies, And I'll talk about the difference in a second, but the best way to choose which company is the best for you is to look at the sailing time and pick the best sailing time for you. That's literally like you find a convenient time, and that's the best way for you to choose which one is the best ferry. Now, if I have to actually make some differences between both Interislander and Bluebridge, the first thing I want to point out is that Interislander ferries are larger. They are significantly bigger ferries, so you have even less of that feelings of being a little crowded. You get more places to walk and explore during the cruise. That is 3 hours to 3.5. Laura was saying 3 hours to 3.5. It's mostly 3.5. And so also because the Interislander ferries are larger, usually that means that when there is bad weather, there are less chances to cancel their crossing. That said, literally yesterday, the Interislander ferry had to use a tugboat to get back in the port. So, it balances itself out. So that's the couple of things, like the couple of pros for like Interislander. However, if I want to talk about some pros for Bluebridge, one thing that I think is really cool with Bluebridge is that they have a cinema. They do actually free movies, within the ferry. So you get time literally flying. Not that, I ever find that the time doesn't fly over there. The views are pretty amazing. And they also have options to upgrade cabins. So yeah. Now, what Bluebridge does, if they have to cancel some ferries, quite often when they cancel, so they don't cancel often, but quite often when they cancel, they actually offer free upgrades to Interislander. So they will literally kind of put you into Interislander to kind of balances their load. So don't panic too much about that big ferry, small ferry thingy. All right, Laura, let's go back to the live chat.
We have some anecdotal, some stories from some people about, whether they prefer Interislander or Bluebridge. So Kiwi Lauren says, fun story. I saw a musician playing in the pub in Picton, listened to his gig, then went home. Hopped on the Interislander the next day where he was playing again, and we're still friends 16 years later.
Pretty cool.
And when I came back in July, we are going on when I come back in July, we are going on a big road trip together, playing some gigs along the way. Talk about full circle, all thanks to Interislander.
Sounds like an ad.
Yeah, so Interislander is a good place to meet friends.
Creating lifelong memories since 19 whatever.
And however, Fabio's anecdote is, kind of an anecdote, saying, in case of an earthquake in Kaikoura, Bluebridge is preferred. I can say that with experience due to the better boat docks.
There you go.
Yeah, so, better boat docks with Bluebridge, maybe more potential for friends on Interislander.
Sherry asks, with Interislander being bigger, would you say that you feel rough seas less than Bluebridge? You don't feel rough seas in any of those ferries. They're really, really big. Just making it really clear. I mean, you have to have had like really, really terrible seas to actually feel
and then at that
there.
point they if it's like awful seas, then they might just cancel the sailing altogether. So in our experience, we've never been I'm usually quite prone to seasickness, but on all the ferry crossings that we've done, I've never had an issue with that. So yeah, it's quite nice. I mean, if you start to feel a little bit gippy, it's usually like you just, keep your eye on the horizon, and there's usually a lot to see, rather than sticking your head down into your phone or something the whole time. Yeah. Maybe you would start to feel a bit of seasickness in that case, but
it has to be really rough seas, honestly.
They're very large. They're very large boats.
Yeah, they're very, very big. Kiwi Loren wants you to work for Interislander, saying that was good speech right here, loving it. Adil asks, are the ferry wheelchair accessible?
I'm 99% sure they are.
No, they are. They are.
Yeah.
There may be some sections that you wouldn't get access to. Some really small like view bridges and everything like that. But most of the ferry will be wheelchair accessible. Yes, it is correct. Sherry says, I've gotten seasick on a whale-watching cruise and I've been paranoid since then.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but like
they're much smaller boats.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're talking like an order of magnitude right here. Like, it's really a massive difference of sizes for the boats that you're going to be, the vessel you're going to be on, right?
Like the ferries, the ferries between the North Island and the South Island are like ships, right? They're like big ships, whereas any other boating that you sort of do in New Zealand, whether it's, whale watching, or if you're going, or even on the smaller ferries between, say, the South Island and Stewart Island, or going over to say Waiheke Island from Auckland, they're all that's not a rough
I was like, you also need a lot of bad weather to be sick.
For Auckland ferries it's all in a sheltered harbour, so that's not really an issue, but elsewhere, if you're going on the open ocean, which is between South Island and Stewart Island in particular, smaller vessels, you are very highly likely to get seasick if you are usually prone to that sort of thing.
Fabio is mentioning a relatively famous video of the Bluebridge ferry getting like, in the wave, like super panic. But that is the one instance made. It's
it's very rare that sort of happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you'd be pretty lucky, and then you can make videos too if you are in that situation.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about a couple of points about booking the Interislander ferry, and we'll talk about prices and everything like that. The Cook Strait ferry, Interislander and Bluebridge, and we'll talk about prices a little bit later within the videos. But when it comes down to booking your ferry between Wellington and Picton, or for that matter from Picton to Wellington, which has like your 2 points, it is quite advisable to book in advance, right? Booking last minute those ferries is really not the thing you want to do, especially if you're traveling with a vehicle. They regularly sell out for a lot of the crossings, right? And on top of that, especially if you're traveling in summer, which is in New Zealand.
That is between December and February.
Oh, well, usually you said 3 months.
December, January, and February.
Yay!
Sorry.
So if you... So do make sure that you book in advance. First up, you will get some early bird discounts. Sometimes through car rental companies or camper van company, you could get a little bit of a discount as well. Another thing to keep in mind when booking your ferries, there are different type of fares when booking your ferries. There is those fares which are like absolutely inflexible. If you're missing the ferry, you're not getting a refund, any of those kind of things. And you have like the fully flexible fares as well. And obviously they vary widely in prices in between that. So consider if you do feel like you need a full refund, a partial refund, or anything like that, or if you feel like your plans are set and that's the time you're going to be taking the ferry. In most cases, that would be the case, and so you can save a little bit of money. Now, in the link in the description below, there is a full article that will recap a lot of the information that we have, and there is links where you can book those ferries online. It's advisable to actually book those in advance, and we link to like a website that kind of compare both of the companies, so it's easier for you rather than going to multiple, but you can go to their own website and book it in that way as well, very easily. Now, if you're already traveling in New Zealand, or if you feel like you want to book it while you're already traveling in New Zealand, that's no problem at all. You can pretty much book the Interislander ferry anywhere. Let's be honest, you can book it from the eyesight, you concierge at any hotels, you can book it from the travel desk of any hostels, you can book it in holiday parks, you can book it pretty much like
anywhere that sells touristy things.
I feel like the only place you cannot book it is the pharmacy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much the only place you cannot book it. So you don't have to really stress too much about that. However, if you're already part of the set tour in New Zealand, if you're taking the bus or anything like that, is it included usually, or do you have to book it with the driver? How does it work?
So usually if you're doing like a tour around in a bus, it is usually included. There may be on some rare occasions it's not included. And what they mean by included, they just basically drop all the passengers off. They give you a passenger ticket, and you go on as a passenger. You don't go on in the bus usually. Just as a little extra thing to say about that.
Here you go. Okay, Kiwi Lauren is completely changing subject and asking us about EcoZip on Waiheke Island.
Yes, we have done that. So she says, have you ever done EcoZip on Waiheke? My musician friend lives on Waiheke and I'm going to zip with him. It looks really fun. We have zip lines here, but I'm excited for the New Zealand scenery. So you can actually check out our video on the channel of us doing the EcoZip tour during New Zealand's biggest gap year. From memory, I believe that it wasn't great weather for it, but it was still really fun. You zip over vineyards, then you zip over forests, and then you get a really lovely native forest walk on the way back up. I think there's only 3 zip lines in total on that tour. They're really long zip lines. But it's quite a short one. There are lots of different zip lining tours and companies around New Zealand, so you can go sort of compare them over at nzpocketguide.com.
And the great Lawrence, one of our Patreons, says that she has done it and it's a lot of fun. Unpopular opinion maybe, but I thought it was a bit pricey for the length of the line. But it is locally owned and they used it to maintain the lands they're on. The walk back up is nice though. Yeah, so I was literally about to jump in and say to Laura that the Waiheke kind of zip line, there is more walking than there is zip lining. Within this one, so not necessarily an unpopular opinion. It's an opinion that we've heard before for sure. And Carola Lawrence, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. By the way, she did say hello, but I thought you were just commenting so topically. I had to jump to your latest comments. Fabio is talking about Stewart Island. What is he saying?
Yeah, he says that Stewart Island was horrible. The captain was shocked when we went to Stewart Island. The waves have been meters high, and he was afraid that the ship would break into pieces. I've never seen a sailor more frightened. Ooh, the ferry back to Bluff was beautiful. Really cool ferry. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I think for the whole crew.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. I mean, New Zealand do have like some decent waves from time to time. You know, I mean that's the case, and I'm not diminishing that at all. When I'm kind of being reductive a little bit is when I say like, come on, during the Cook Strait, like it would be a once a year when you will have like those really big waves that would make you seasick.
Sailing, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really have that often, but that's the thing that, you know, get millions of views online. But the one which is like, hey, everything went well during the crossing, that gets like 3 views, as you can see on our channel. Because it's usually like, hey, everything went well, nothing horrible happened to anyone. Guess what? That's how it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously he's mocking the zip in Canada. The zip lines in Canada. Okay. Cool. Let's go back to let's talk a little bit about what is it like to taking the ferry as a walk-on passenger and as the vehicle passenger. Laura, which one you want to take, the walk-on or the vehicle?
I'll do the walk-on passenger.
All right. Let's just give you a Laura right here talking about what is it like to take the ferry between the North Island to the South Island as a walk-on passenger.
Okay, so first of all, you need to go to the right terminal. So obviously you choose whether you want to do Islander and Interislander or Bluebridge. So you go to the appropriate terminal, and then from there you need to go to the actual appropriate terminal for walk-on passengers, because walk-on passengers check in at a different area compared to people driving in a vehicle. So just bear that in mind. It's usually in a building, so you go inside and you can check in some luggage. If you have large pieces of luggage, like a suitcase or a large backpack, you can go and check those in. The allowance is for 2 pieces of check-in luggage, which weigh 30 kgs, which is 66 pounds. And yeah, you can also check in sporting gear as well, which might have an additional small fee to add to that. So yeah, you check in your baggage. Otherwise, you can still keep like a backpack on and stuff for carry-on luggage, kind of like same as the plane, really. And yeah, you just wait until they call you through and you get on your way.
All right. Sorry, you.
I'm sorry. Did I end too abruptly there?
Yeah, you finished very, very abruptly. Right here. That's fine. That's one I was definitely prepared. By the way, if you are one of the person that can carry 2 luggage of 30 kgs each, or 2 luggage of 66 pounds each, I would like to meet you. I do need a new mule because Laura doesn't really carry her own weight when we travel around. So please reach out. I'd like to travel with you around New Zealand for sure. All right, so let's talk about what happens when you are taking the ferry by car or by camper van. All right, so first up, I want to point out that we will show you a video of the boarding process, Litty, just right after this segment. So yeah, we'll literally show you what it usually looks like when you take the car, so you know we relieve all the stress. But do note that when you are traveling as a passenger, as Laura mentions, being there about 30 minutes in advance is kind of like the time that is usually kind of suggested. However, when you're traveling with a vehicle, you want to be there at least an hour in advance. There is much more that you kind of need to do and organize for sure. You need to go to the vehicle terminal. So the vehicle terminal is usually separated. It's not too far from like where the passenger terminal is, but it's located at a different area. So don't show up where it says passenger. And there's a lot of signs, right? It is a very touristic area. It is very, very, very well signposted. Sorry, but yeah, you do need to be aware of that. So in Wellington, the Interislander vehicle terminal is on Aotea Quay, and for Bluebridge, it is the kind of literally next to the passenger area. So it's at 50 Waterloo Quay. In Picton, the vehicle terminal will be for Interislander at 3 Auckland Street, and for Picton, for Bluebridge, sorry, it is 1 Lagoon Road. They are quite far away from each other in Picton, so do be aware of that.
In Wellington. They're far away from each other in Wellington.
In Wellington, yeah. Sorry. So up here you go. Now we're going to show you a video of what it actually looks like to actually hop on the ferry. This is our video snippet of the day. No, wrong one. Oh, here we go. No, nobody saw anything. Okay, so right now we are going to be using a camper van to get onto the Wellington ferry. So as you can see, we're just literally following all the arrows, and we're very happy to go onto the South Island for seeing, very exciting time. So you arrive in front of a booth that looks a little bit like a drive-through. You sort out a ticket, and they give you a little bit of a marker that actually signifies that you do have a gas bottle in there, just in case of emergency. And then they tell you need to get line 1, 2, 3, or 4. They can't tell you where it is. You also do get passenger tickets. That's a good way to remind us that if you do have a ticket for your camper van, you still need to buy a ticket for the passenger one. And then you will be guided through by a lot of staff to park at the right place. This is how they organize all the camper vans. Then we are going to show you what it looks like to get in the ferry with a car going from Picton all the way to Wellington. So same thing, a little bit of a booth right here. You get your tickets, you get sorted out, and then you have to wait quite a while. Same thing, you get yourself into a little bit of a line, and you just wait and wait for quite a long time.
But we waited in style, didn't we?
Exactly. We decided to have a bit of a picnic right here.
Bit of a wine, bit of cheese.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how you treat yourself
We just travelled through the Marlborough region, so, we were kind of feeling like having a wine and cheese platter.
Indeed. And so at some point, they kind of like almost ring a horn and cars start moving. So you pack up everything that you need to do, and then you kind of follow every line will take you to a different level of the ferry. And then the staff will point you out to where to park. And what they usually do is that they park you in a way where you're going to be able to get out really easily. And then you can walk back up onto the ferry. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it looks like to kind of like get yourself onto the ferry when you have a vehicle. I know that a lot of people are a little bit stressed about that part of the trip. So we thought we'd show you a little bit what it looks like. All right, what is Kiwi Lauren having to say?
So Kiwi Lauren was talking about ziplining in Canada, talking to Fabio. And then says, I've seen photos of people with their rocks/gemstones that they've collected from Gemstone Beach. Very cool. And I'd love to do the same, but is it freely allowed to remove them from the beach? So for Gemstone Beach, that is down in the bottom of the Southland region, I am pretty sure you're allowed to take stones from there. There's only just slight issues, sort of cultural issues when it comes to getting green stones. Punamu, yeah. Or Ponamu. So getting greenstone is more of a cultural issue, particularly along the west coast of the South Island. So if you want to, be respectful to the locals there and perhaps don't take stones from there. There's lots of amazing carvings and stone carvings and pendants that you can buy from various shops and stuff, which is usually the preferred method of getting greenstone. But if you're just getting rocks from the beach, which is same for Gemstone Beach on the bottom of the South Island, then you should be all good, but that gets pretty heavy in your luggage. Make sure that you don't go over your weight allowance for going back to your home country.
Fabio was correcting me, saying that yes, it was the Wellington ferries that were for part of the Picton one, as Laura was correcting me as well. And Sherry's asking a question. She said, I've heard you can't access your car/van while on the ferry. Is it true?
You
can't even stay in your van,
So you're not allowed to stay in your car while the ferry is going. As soon as you park up, you're asked to leave your vehicle, and you basically don't access it for the whole time that the sailing is happening until you get over to Picton or land in Wellington, and then you get back in, listen to the instructions to drive back out.
Yeah, so you'll be 3 hours away from your vehicle, so be prepared. Pack a tent, pack a sleeping
pack
bag,
whatever supplies you need to see you through the ferry crossing.
No, but jokes aside, don't forget your phone or anything like that. Just get the stuff you want to get out of the car, because once you get out of the parking kind of area, you don't have access to it anymore. It's like a one-way thingy until you hear like the calling of like passenger may return to the car now. You just arrived in Picton. All right, Lawrence says, I know you guys aren't in Auckland, but is there flooding there as bad as we hear? We talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the video. I think the instances of things that you're seeing are just the most dramatic ones. It's not as bad. It's just, Auckland is built on kind of a bit of a swamp, on a big mangrove area, right? So they haven't worked out the drainage well enough, and so therefore there is some major public buildings, such as one small section of the airport terminal, which has been a little bit flooded. But again, we're talking about like a small section, and then you have plenty of photos of people being perfectly fine fine in like other areas of the airport. So yeah, I mean, it has happened to me when I lived in Auckland, right? We have had some times when I had like water like almost all the way to the knees, and it does happen, and it's just what life living in the swamp is technically, right? You're just
Living in the swamp.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you can build a city on top of a swamp. Guess what? The water is going to still try to come when there is a lot of rain. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like I was seeing like people marking themselves safe on Facebook and everything. It's kind of like, wait a minute. It's not that big of a crazy thing right here.
Yeah. Kiwi Lauren says, those Kiwi swamp monsters living in swamps, living the dream.
There's not swamps everywhere. I mean, we don't live in the swamp, everything is relatively dry.
On the drive that we did yesterday, the only part that was kind of like flooded across the road, but it was the wetland area. Yeah. So the area that is usually like, it's usually wet, like a very damp area, and there's not, that much drainage that can handle that much rain in that little amount of time.
Lauren says Boston is mostly a former swamp, so I can relate. She lives in Boston, in the US. So although we never had many flooding here, do we know is Armand has his scuba gear ready? Yeah, he sent me a couple of videos on Facebook actually. Well, if you look on the Facebook group, you'll see videos of him like just doing his work commute, and you see quite a lot of rain over there. But yeah, I don't know if he has. I think at this level of water, snorkeling gears is more what you want rather than scuba gear. So
it's not as bad as scuba diving just yet.
You're not scuba gear just yet. Give us another week of rain and then it's mandatory scuba gears. But right now it's like just advised to carry your snorkeling gears. So yeah. Okay, Shaniwa Bakare says something.
Says, hi, I'm not sure if this is the right question for today's topic, but I was just live today. I'm an African considering moving to New Zealand, and I wanted to know if racism is an issue in New Zealand.
Okay, so obviously we are as pale as it gets, so we can give you our perspective as very, very white people, and like skin colors does make a big difference when you come down to this topic. So we're gonna try to answer your question without speaking out of term, right? But racism is a topic that has impacted my travel life quite a lot. In fact, when I did travel to Australia, I decided to cut my trip short because I was encountering racism. I was actually hanging out with a bunch of people which had a different skin tone than mine, and I was kind of sick of having bouncers in front of club that literally were pointing at me being white and say you can get in and the other ones cannot, and I think that's just kind of not acceptable. So I cut my trip short, for example, from Australia, and decided to go to another country. I haven't encountered much racism here in New Zealand. There is always going to be like the old guard, the older generation that will have like some kind of staunch ideas that they keep on like kind of talking about kind of all the time. But as a general rule, when traveling in New Zealand, and someone in the chat, Fabio, will be able to kind of attest to that. As a general rule, if you don't have like the common cultures with Kiwis, if you're not like kind of born and bred here in New Zealand, it is a little harder to actually make long-lasting friendships. So when it comes down to like moving to New Zealand, it will be harder for you to have meaningful connection with people. They just don't tend to kind of open. They would be great to like kind of a surface friendship, but it would be a bit harder to actually get long and deeper friendship here in the country. But I don't think that has much to do with your skin color as much as it has to do with the fact you don't have that common culture and you have a funny accent. I've been in New Zealand for almost 13 years now, and I still sound like I'm just fresh off the boat, and people will point that out to me every single time. Like it gets like Laura sometimes roll her eyes and like, man, they always point out. Yeah, they will do. So they will always kind of point it out in that way, just so you kind of just so you're kind of aware. Now, when it comes down to actually pure racism, like you're black, you're white, I like the white person, I don't like the black person, these kind of things, it is definitely less prominent than many of the countries that I've traveled through. It's not as metropolitan and as much of a melting pot as you will have in Canada, and a welcoming melting pot that you will have, for example, when I lived in Canada. But it's definitely not as bad as rural America, which I experienced, as Australia, which was probably one of the worst ones I experienced. So that's kind of like what I have for you. Obviously, our perspective is coming from like the whitest of the whitest. And Laura comes with an English heritage, which is very welcome here in New Zealand. She's from the UK, so it's kind of like, it's a very similar culture. So she assimilated like well easier than I did, to be quite honest. And so, yeah, So yeah, that's kind of like what we have for you, Shoniwa. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in. You can always ask us all the questions that you have about traveling in New Zealand in any of our live shows. The theme that we get for each day is more like kind of a framing device to kind of frame the discussion, but we stray off to a lot of different things. If you actually rewind the video 10 minutes, we were talking about a zip line.
Yeah.
And there's no zip line between both ferry companies while doing the Cook Strait, which
That
would
would
be
be
really
cool.
fun. That would be really fun, though. That'd be really a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. What is Kiwi Lauren saying?
Kiwi Lauren says, I'm planning to take my friend caving in Waitomo. I've done Black Abyss, which is the 5-hour tour, and loved it. I know there's also Black Labyrinth, maybe 3 hours. Worth it for the longer one, I assume. I agree that
I have a completely different opinion.
Yeah, no, my opinion is I think you should, it is worth doing the 5-hour tour. You do extra activities that otherwise the Black Labyrinth is quite, feels really short. You only do more of the tubing aspect is more the focus on Black Labyrinth, but with Black Abyss, there's more, there's the abseiling, there's, a little more scrambling in the caves, jumping off waterfalls and jumping, just jumping around and having a good time in the cave. So I personally find the Black Abyss better value, in my opinion.
So my controversial opinion is, if you've done the Blackwater rafting once, do another company, because you'll see a completely different cave network and will have a very, very different opinion. So a very different experience. So I will strongly advise you to go with a company called Waitomo Adventures, which will give you a very, very different kind of caving in very different caves with heaps of glowworms as well. And I think that you absolutely should do that rather than doing the same cave twice. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Bam! Controversial.
I do, because she was asking between Black Abyss and Black Labyrinth. But yeah, I agree. If there are more options than just the Blackwater Rafting Company, Waitomo Adventures does a really awesome caving tour as well. So yeah, definitely Kiwi Lauren, look into that. For their adventures are more similar to the Black Abyss portion of Blackwater rafting.
But even the abseiling is really different, in between the cave in big open space. You will love there too. Anyway, and she says, I never heard of the Waitomo Adventure, so thanks for that, Robin. You're very welcome. You should check out nzpocketguide.com. There is a lot of, we list all the different cave tours.
We literally compare all the cave tours in Waitomo, and there are a lot more companies there than
I
people
literally just mentioned one, right?
There
is a lot of others.
There's Cave World, Spellbound, Waitomo, Glowworm Caves, they're kind of called, and then Blackwater Rafting, which are kind of two same companies, and Waitomo Adventures. So there's a whole bunch of companies there that often people don't realize exist.
What she said.
Yeah.
Fabio agrees with my statement about making friendships here in New Zealand, and has a very fun comparison. He says Kiwis are quite complicated kind of people, very nice on the first layer of the onion, very British in the middle, little hard to get in the depth, and very kind of in the core.
Oh, how delightful.
Look at that. And Fabio says you can get Adil is saying
Is the procedure for booking a ticket for the boarding the ferry the same for handicapped and elderly as it is for others?
Yes, you can. Picture it as a simplified version of taking the plane, right? You'll even be boarding first and all those kind of things. So it's going to be quite easy as very simple. And Fabio says you can get ferry ticket from everywhere. We recommend you go to iSight and book the ferry over there if you are an elder one. Oh yeah, if you want to pay cash, you can. Cool. Kiwi Lauren says, I'm the worst for not reading enough before asking this question. Busy teacher and mom over here. Looks like I need to assign myself some reading homework. The teachers always tell people to read, but they don't read themselves. What is going on?
Yeah, do your homework, Kiwi Lauren.
We do have full guidance there and all the different companies, and we tried a lot of them, so we're able to compare them in more objective ways compared to just one quick blog reviews, which is just kind of this one I've just tried this one. It's going to tell you what this one is. The advantage that we have as travel writers, have been doing that for more than a decade now, is that we have tried all of them, and we have had this luxury, but we are able to pass on all that knowledge and all that luxury to you, and be able to say, listen, we know both of those things, so we can tell you this is the best one for you, or this is the best one for you, rather than somebody that's only done once, or somebody that's job is to sell it to you and usually have only done one or none of them, which really often happen with travel agents. So we have a little bit of that extra little thingy for you. Fabio says, I use my power as a teacher to get a comparison of the topogeography of the Tongariro area. Oh, so you give them assignment to your students? That is fun. I do like that.
Nice.
I do like that a lot. All right, guys, we are going to take a minute to get back to our ferry guide right here, but keep on asking us questions about anything to do with traveling in New Zealand. Now we're going to be talking about the different prices when it comes down to taking the ferry in New Zealand. Laura, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
How about I do it? I feel like
right.
you've been talking for quite a while now.
All right. So, Laura, what are the different prices for taking the ferry in New Zealand? Just approximate.
Yeah, so we'll just talk about approximate prices because there can be a number of factors that influence price. We've already talked about like night sailings or really early morning sailings can be cheaper. Booking in advance sometimes can give you, nice early bird discount. Also, even the dates, of the season. So in the high season, it will be more expensive than in the low season. So think about all these things that could influence the prices. But just to give you an approximate price, if you are going just as a passenger, so you're just checking in as a passenger, that's usually between 50 to 70 New Zealand dollars. If you're a passenger plus a motorcycle, so you're taking your motorcycle onto the ferry, that is $110 to 150 New Zealand dollars. If you are a passenger plus a car, that is 175 to 255 New Zealand dollars. If you're a passenger in a small camper van, that's usually between 205 to 285 New Zealand dollars. And if you're a passenger in a large camper van, so like an RV motorhome sort of thing, that can be between 310 to 405 New Zealand dollars. So prices going between going either to the North or the South Island or back from the South Island to the North Island. Usually they're marginally more expensive if you're going from South Island to North Island, but really this is very little price difference. You can kind of, when you're doing your budgeting, you can kind of assume they're going to be around the same price, like both ways.
All right, so let's talk about some ways to save money when booking your tickets, on the ferry in between the Northern End and the Southern End, or the Southern End to the Northern End. And I'm just going to give you like 6 little ways that you can save a little bit of money. But again, it's a duopoly, right? So it is going to be really hard to get a major discount on your ferry trip, in New Zealand. But the first thing you can be doing is to travel very light, i.e. have a very light vehicle. A car is much cheaper than the camper van. A small camper van is much cheaper than the big RV, etc. As Laura was saying. So just pick the right vehicle for the trip. I think that we hammer that with Laura really, really often when we give travel tips in New Zealand. It saves you on gas, it saves you on daily rate, it saves you on insurance, it saves on everything to actually pick the right vehicle and not necessarily go for like the biggest vehicle you can. So keep that in mind. The next one is to travel relatively early. So the ferry crossing tend to be a little bit cheaper in the other times of the day, so the later evening ones and the early morning ones, with the very, very early morning ones usually being the cheapest, so keeping that in mind. But spending the little extra, if the price difference is not too big, the views are pretty spectacular, so why not going for that? Okay, next tip for you guys is to traveling in the off season. So the New Zealand summer, which is December, January, February, is usually our highest season, like the peak season, where there is usually the most basically tourists in New Zealand. It gets really booked really often. So if you and even either or, like you can go all the way from October to March. Just try, and if you don't travel between these times, usually you're gonna get cheaper prices. So keep that in mind. Booking early, obviously, getting an early bird booking. There's a lot of early bird bookings going on around when it comes down to booking ferry. So pick that in mind. Then tip number 5, picking the best ticket options. So there is a lot of different ticket options that you could have. When traveling around New Zealand, for sure. Sorry, when traveling on the ferry, for sure, there is like those non-refundable one. There is like so super flexible one. So obviously pick the one that you need to get. Most people traveling around New Zealand on a set time frame, usually, what happened? They just need to get the normal cheapest one because they're not going to change their plans. But keep that in mind. And finally, obviously, traveling with multiple people. So one thing to keep in mind when you're traveling, when you're booking a vehicle on the ferry, it's a vehicle and one passenger. So if you have other people, they do have to get passenger tickets as well. However, if you fill up the car, you can all get, your passenger ticket plus a little bit extra to pay for the car, and you'll be able to offset those costs. So here you go. those are our tips for trying to save some money on the ferry in New Zealand.
Yeah, and thanks to Fabio for giving us a tip, which is a super chat. And he says that he sent in the new plan of his itinerary via Facebook, Robin.
Oh, nice. I will check that out. Well, we do have the Patreon live show coming in about 15 minutes, so we'll look at that together. For sure, I'm just going to double check that I have it. And
so just as a bit of context for you guys, that one of the things that we do for our Patreons is we help with their itineraries and give one-on-one feedback on their itineraries around New Zealand. So it's just, another great perk of being one of our Patreons.
Yeah, link below.
Yeah, link below. Adil is thanking Fabio for the tip. We have Freddie Banks saying, I arrive in Auckland in 3 days.
Oh my God, that's soon.
Canada. It seems like there is a flood situation. Yes, I see you may have heard about that, Freddie. Everybody's heard about it, saying, am I going to have any problems when I land? Thanks a lot for your work, guys.
Laura, pick up your crystal ball.
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if you will have any problems when you land. As far as we know, it's only one small section of the airport that is flooded. I don't think the entire airport is closed down.
You should be fine.
Yeah, so you should be fine. I mean, you'll probably get a notification if your flight is cancelled. The airline will let you know. I wouldn't be too anxious about it just yet.
Pack your classic really good Canadian rain jacket. I know that you guys in Canada do really good rain jackets. Pack one of those though, because it is raining quite a lot. And if I were you, I would also kind of start thinking already at my transfer from the airport, going back to my accommodation. Should you be booking one of the shuttles, booking one of the bus, taking a taxi, any of those kind of things? Start thinking about it. We do have a full guide of all your different options, including like some which are significantly cheaper door-to-door options than what traditional Uber, taxi, or anything like that, which are kind of like shuttle stuff. We have a full guide on NZ Pocket Guide. So if you go on nzpocketguide.com and then you just click, you just type in the search, you say airport transfer, and then we have a full guide for you. We tried all of the different ones so you can pick the best one for you. And also you're making Kiwi Lauren very jealous right now. She's very envious of you. She's booked for July and very excited. She loves New Zealand so much.
And she's also from Canada.
Yeah, she's from Canada as well.
Yeah.
Canada. All right. What else do we have?
Speaking of Auckland, maybe we can look at Armin's video.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. We'll look at Armin's video and then we're going to talk about like some fun fact about the ferry or some things you need to know about the ferry as a wrap-up. Okay, let's see what Armin has been up to then. I was definitely prepared for that, Laura.
Yeah, sorry to just throw in that.
That's okay. Okay, so Armin is a French backpacker which is currently taking a gap year in New Zealand. This is week 16 for him. So what has he been up to? Well, let's check it out and I'll see you in about 3 minutes after this video.
Kia ora guys, this is Arman reporting from Waiheke Island on the 16th week of my working holiday in New Zealand. So I decided to come to Waiheke Island this weekend for two main reasons. First and foremost, to get away from the chaos of K Road and to unwind a little bit, and also to do some photography, specifically to do some landscape photography and use my new 10 to 24 millimeters ultra wide lens. I went to I think it's called Sacred Blessing Sanctuary Garden. It was really nice. I took some macro shots of flowers and the butterflies. I also went to some beaches, namely the I think it's Oneroa Beach and Onetangi. I'm staying at a hostel. I stayed at the hostel for Saturday night, and today, Sunday, I'm going back after 7 p.m. as there is a reduced fee for the Fuelers 360 ferry if you go to Waiheke after 1 p.m. and take the return trip after 7. You basically get the reduced fare, which is what I'm doing, because that way I can enjoy the Saturday afternoon and also the Sunday. Just look at how peaceful this place is. It's so cool to have such a place that's close to the Auckland mainland, because you basically just have to take the ferry, which takes around 45 minutes to take you to Waiheke Island. And I think I might come back practically every week, or at least every 2 weeks if the weather is good. I also found a massage parlor not far from my flat in the CBD, and I'm considering going there every Friday after work because it's not that expensive. Usually for half an hour of a Thai massage it's around $50, which is decent compared to what I know from back in Paris. Other than that, I will be moving out of my flat to another calmer, more peaceful place not far from my current flat, actually, in Queen Street, and it's actually also a bit cheaper, the rent, around $310. Yeah, I will keep you guys posted for next week. Take care of yourselves, and cheers. Oh, and one thing that is worth mentioning, I think, is that I stayed on Waiheke for just one night, Saturday night, and the mosquitoes feasted off my flesh, and I have all these bites everywhere. I don't know if you can see them, but all over my leg also. And yeah, I think it's worth taking a mosquito repellent.
Right.
Yeah, I really like his night photos. That's really awesome.
Yeah, really good night shots. Night shots. I like that. By the way, guys, this is obviously last week, so that's before it started raining. This is not like, you know.
This is how good Auckland can look.
This is what the Auckland Harbour, the beautiful Auckland Harbour can look like,
Yeah.
for sure. Fabio is asking about the airport. Is public service still available at the airport in order to kind of transfer from the airport? The answer is
Yes.
yes. Anthony says, stay safe. I'm here until the end. Nice. Thank you very much for giving us the reminder. We will wrap up quickly. Lauren says she passed by that hostel in Onitangi Beach many times. Nice one.
It's a nice one. Right on the coast. So good.
Kiri Loren says, I know I've had a lot of questions, but I sometimes forget to stop and say thank you for all you do. It's fun to check in every week and talk about my favorite country. It fuels the excitement. You are going to explode at some point. You're way too excited, way too far in advance. I think you're going to have to send the emergency services to Kiri Loren's house at some point. All right, guys, so we're going to wrap up this session about taking the ferry between the North Island and the South Island, in New Zealand, with 15 little facts that you kind of need to know about the ferry. Thing that is basically a bit of a summary as well, like things that, we just want you guys to remember. Okay, so let's get started, Laura. Fact number one.
Okay, fact number one, that there are 2 ferry companies for the Cook Strait, Interislander and Bluebridge.
Fact number 2, you can take the ferry both ways. You can go from Picton to Wellington, so South Island to North Island, or North Island to South Island, Wellington to Picton. However, getting a return ticket offer you only very little discount. So if you want to cross combining 2 different companies, that may be smart. Fact number 3 is very similar to what I just said.
So combining both companies, there's usually 5 crossings in a given day. So you have plenty of options when it comes to departure times.
Some people think that the ferry in New Zealand can be taken if you have a vehicle. That's not the case. You can take the ferry as a walk-on passenger. Anyone which is traveling around New Zealand by just hiking around, traveling by bike, or even traveling by bus, which is the most likely option out of all those. You absolutely can just get onto the ferry as a walk-on passenger.
And if you're travelling without a car, then the luggage limit is 2 bags of 30 kgs. So that's about £60 maximum.
Okay, thing number 6 that you need to know when taking the ferry in New Zealand is the length of the crossing. Between 3 to 3.5 hours is what usually going to be taken, with the longer crossing being during bad weather days. Oops.
Next on the list is that you cannot stay in your car during the ferry crossing, so make sure you take what you need up into the upper decks with you.
Sherry was asking about that. Something for the ladies. Laura is always cold. It actually gets quite cold on the ferry during the night crossing. Like, really, it does get quite cold, so make sure that you dress accordingly. As Laura mentioned, you won't have access to your car anymore, so if you forgot your jacket and you're getting quite cold, well, you're going to be confined to like the small indoor area, and that's pretty much it. So do dress accordingly when leaving the ferry.
It is very unlikely that you will get seasick during the ferry crossing.
Here you go, Sherry.
So they're very big. don't be scared about seasickness. But if you are super prone, if you have the weakest of stomachs, then it's never a bad idea to take seasickness tablets just in case.
Here you go. Can you do the next one for me, Laura?
The next one is, while we're on the medical side of things, make sure that if it is a sunny day and you are going out onto the outside decks, make sure that you slap on the sunscreen. When you're on boats, it doesn't really feel like you are getting sunburn because of the wind and stuff, but it's usually the time when you're going to get the most sunburn. So make sure that you keep that sunscreen on hand.
Okay, so both ferries have been built overseas. None of them have been built in New Zealand. However, all the power outlets are New Zealand/Australia 3-pin plugs. So whatever travel adapter you've been using during your trip traveling around, you'll be able to use it in the ferry.
So also a thing on the cruise is that you are most likely to see dolphins or albatross or some sort of wildlife while you're traveling through the Marlborough Sounds. So if you need to keep, maybe if you're traveling with kids or you just need to keep yourself entertained, then, it always pays to have a look outside and have a look at the water and see if you can spot some wildlife.
I'm going to sneak in Sherry's question right here.
Yeah.
She said, is the whole trip very scenic?
Most of the trip is very scenic.
Indeed.
Not the whole trip. There's like maybe one section in the middle, not so scenic. But
Well, it's water. It's really nice
just
too.
water. Yeah,
It's still nice.
water's great, but most of it is really, really scenic.
Okay, so the next tip for you guys, that you don't need to stress about parking. Honestly, that's one thing that we hear a lot from tourists. They're really stressed about parking a big camper van in the ferry, which is a really small, tight, confined space. But the staff on both companies are extremely helpful. They really guide you very well, and getting on board and off board, like unloading and offloading, is actually very easy. So yeah, don't stress too much about that.
2 ways to save money on your ferry ticket is to travel in the low season, or book your ferry ticket in advance.
Yes. And finally, if you're feeling a little peckish, both companies have cafes and food facilities on board. So if you don't have your own food, you're definitely going to be able to grab a snack there. But you are allowed to bring your own snack on board. There's no restrictions like, in some places. So you're more than welcome to grab all the pack of food that you got. And it's going to be significantly cheaper to buy them in the local supermarket rather than buying them on the ferry. So you can bring your snacks or you can use the cafe. All right, so that was 15 things that we wanted you to know about the ferry. Now, there's a lot of people saying a lot of nice words, and I asked Laura to take for me because Santiago, he's speaking in Spanish for us, so obviously I couldn't really get the whole spiel. So in short, he says, "Hello guys, nice to see you again. A greeting from San Blas, Nayarit in Mexico." So, hola Mexico, hola. If you only ask us some questions in English, that will make our life significantly easier. Azewara says, "You guys are great, doing great work. Keep it up." Thank you very much. Fabio is talking in Spanish to Santiago, so we're going to let them chit chat. And Freddy says, "You guys helped me a lot through the whole working holiday visa process. Your work is highly appreciated." You're very welcome. Thank you so much. If you want to do if you want to get even more help from us, you can join us on Patreon. It starts at like $5 a month, which is really, really small. And you'll get access to this secret Facebook group where we actually are there literally all the time answering questions. Like we have a guy called Bjorn. He's traveling with his girlfriend right now for 3 months around New Zealand. He had quick questions about phone network in New Zealand as he was choosing his SIM card literally on that day, and we got to respond really quickly to him.
Yeah.
Just those kind of things. So if
any issues or things or questions that you have while you're traveling and while you're doing your working holiday in New Zealand.
Yeah, so we have Fabio right here in the live chat as well, which is planning his itinerary, and we're literally going to spend an hour during our Patreon live show right now, just kind of going over his itinerary. Probably that's we're always under chatting way too much about itinerary. Lawrence is here as well. Sherry is here also, traveling in October, which we're really looking forward to seeing. So yeah, jump on Patreon. We try to make the prices there as low as possible. It's a great way to support us and kind of foster that little community that little community that we like building. So if you feel like it and you can afford it, feel free to join us. It is a lot of fun. But otherwise, obviously we have the site, and obviously we have those live show always available.
We always have lots of free information for you guys to always check out. There's thousands of articles on NZ Pocket Guide.
And I'm not going to read Fabio's last comments because I'm not taking the bait this time again, Fabio. I know what's happening right here. I know we're not opening that door again. All right, speaking of Patreon, we're going to wrap that up and we're going to jump to our Patreon live show. That's going to be another hour just for our Patreons. And so, yeah, in the meantime, we wish you all a fantastic week. I hope that you learned enough about the New Zealand ferry, the Cook Strait crossing. And yeah, if you do have any questions of your own, you can leave them in the comment of this video. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this show. We see you next week at the same time. And
8 a.m. New Zealand
yeah, Santiago
time.
says, gracias por la mention. Thank you for the mention, I'm guessing. Agregam a tu grupo, por favor. Add me on the group, you saying? Yeah, you can join us on Patreon and you will have access to the group straight away. So, yeah.
Link in the description below.
Yeah, so join us on Patreon and then you will get access. Like, you get an automatic email that will give you access to the group. I think that's what you mean. Adil says, what's the theme for next week? You asked that last time and I'm not prepared. Wait, I will check that for you. Oh, he doesn't want us to leave, does he? The theme for next week is going to be the...
Is it February?
February, yeah. It's the first week of February, so we're going to talk about the weather and climate in February. So we just know we're going to use the map over there at the back and everything. It's going to be...
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. And I'm not reading what Fabio is saying. I refuse to take the bait. All right, everybody. We wish you a fantastic week. We'll see you next week for Adil Themes of the Week, which is the weather in February. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye.